So hopefully this will be the last video in the series. I took the expansion joints from the MK4 and I decided that I was going to, before I upgraded this printer, because this one has some other problems, and if you've seen the other videos, you'll hear me talk about that. So this is supposed to be the last video of, I guess, a mini series, but so if you hear weird pauses, I have this tendency to say, I'm trying not to do that, so please bear with me. Well, so this one, I'll show you real quickly. Okay, here are the expansion joints, and these are found on the MK4S Plus, okay? Or sorry, these are found on the MK4, all right? So I took them from the kit that I have to upgrade this printer, and I decided before I upgrade the printer, I just want to try and see if this kind of thing would work on the MK3S Plus, because there are so many people who talk about the Nylock mod and the silicon mod, and I almost tried one of them, but I got really uncomfortable trying to squish down the silicon, and I was like, no, I'm not going to do this. And for the most part, if you have your Pinda calibrated correctly, you don't need the silicon mod or any other kind of mod. The reason why I like this is more out of convenience, because spacers like to fall, and I kind of trying to find the right spacer. It's kind of funny. I dropped it 2 times, and then like trying to find it, just no. I reminded myself really quickly why this is necessary, because like I said, this screws to the frame, except for one. You have one centered one all the way in the middle, okay? Just one that if you lose, you know, when I had to first take the bed off, like the first time I took the bed off of this, I lost 2 of them. I spent like, I can't even tell you how many hours trying to find them. And like I said before, they're very weakly attracted to a magnet, and like if you wobble like a magnet too much, it'll fall off the magnet. It's not worth it, okay? And these ones, you have to get them all in, and you have to have them spaced correctly, and they'll fall off, they'll fall to the side, and they'll roll around, they'll roll off, they'll fall on the floor. No, out of convenience, this is going to be a winner for me. However, keep in mind that this is not a Prusa. This is not something that Prusa has come out with. This is just something that I'm doing of my own free will. I'm not affiliated with them. I'm not sponsored by them. They probably, I don't know how happy they'll be for me saying that I'm doing this. So I'm gonna buy some expansion joints before they know. But also, I have an extra spacer from my MK4 kit. They only sell the expansion joints. They don't sell the spacer, and I wonder if that might be for a reason. I'm not entirely sure. So, however, the MK4 expansion joints do work on here, and I'll get to the results from that real quickly. These are both 0.8 nozzles, okay? So I did upgrade the firmware on these ones, and they're both running 3.13s, okay? Now, before I did that, this one had an older one, and it wasn't working as well. And I thought that it might be the firmware, so I upgraded the firmware, and then it kind of gave me like a Z level error, and I'm like, oh no, it's the firmware. Maybe I need to go back. Well, maybe the joints won't work, because there is a size difference. All right, so these are calipers. I need to find I have better calipers that are a little bit more accurate, but this is 7.86. Okay, 7.85, and that spacer. Okay, I have another one here. Okay. The spacers for size are 5.33, okay? This camera is reversed, okay? I don't know why it's reversed, but it's 5.33, okay? So there is a height difference, okay? In between the two. I will hold this one here so you can see, okay? Well, tell you what, let's do it the other way. And then if I drop the spacer, that's fine. I don't care. So you can see that there is a height difference, okay? So I was worried that height difference might throw off the firmware, and it might in the future, but I'll show you the firmware in each, okay? So this one says, okay. This one says the RHF60, because this one is, so I'm running both of these on Revos, okay? And with the Revo, you need custom firmware, and I get mine from GitHub, which you're supposed to get it from GitHub, okay? This has the 60-watt core, all right? And this one has the 40 watt core, okay? So I'll show you this one. We'll say the RHF 60. And when you go to your support, okay, this is 3.132-780, okay? Now, and that one has a new, they both have high flow nozzles, just this one has the 60 watt, okay? This one, okay, this one only says R because this is a 40 watt. When you go down to support, this is a 3.132-780, okay? So I printed the one on this one first, all right? And this one does print faster because it has a high flow nozzle and it does have the 60 watt core, okay? This one I did have to slow down and I had to print it a couple times because, so even though this one printed okay, there's something where the 0.8 nozzle is neglected and you can't, in my opinion, get the best results if with the stock settings for 0.8 nozzles, okay? So for me, my best settings with the 0.8 nozzle have been when I have taken whatever layer I want and made it that first layer, okay? So if it's a 0.3, and I think it's the point, so okay, this was a 0.3 and that would have been the 0.3 detail under the 0.8, okay? And I'm running both of these under MK4 settings. So I run it without the input shaper, all right? So for this, if this was a 0.3 detail, so when you go under layers and parameters, okay, you'll have something called layer height and first layer height. My first layer height is set to the same as layer height. And I have had the best success having the best prints with that. So, and I'll show you why, okay? So this one is my printer that I keep for the most part. It has a new nozzle, all right? It's, you know, normally this is the one that turns out the best prints. It has a 60 watt core. It, you know, this can print much faster because of it. You know, this is usually my go-to. However, this was, when I slice this one, 0.2 and then 0.3 rest of the way, you're going to notice that one, it is, you know, these are supposed to rotate freely, all right? But it's not as pretty as a print, okay? So you know, the problem is that when it has that first layer, I don't know if the calculation is wrong for the layer after that. It just, I've never had great prints when I have not changed that first layer. I mean, you'll get somewhat decent, but you won't get your best prints, okay? So that being said, I had to reslice because I noticed that one, it wasn't printing as well. So I was like, well, first off, okay, that's because this is the 40 watt, all right? So maybe that's what that is. So then I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna need to turn up the temperature and slow it down. So I did that. And then I still wasn't getting what I wanted. But I was like, oh, because it had been a while since, you know, I had been having to do with this because, you know, I kind of have my profile set and I just kind of keep printing with that one and I'm pretty happy with it. So normally with a 0.4 nozzle, this would have been a 4 hour and something print. This was an hour and 20 print, you know, and it would have been the same, an hour and 20 print on this one too. You know, this one I had to slow down because 40 watt core and it needed more time for that. Now, this is 0.8 nozzle, okay? And you'll notice that it is a very beautiful print. Now, the reason why it can be this pretty is also because, like I said, I think there's something with the calculation because they neglect the 0.8. You know, it's just never been as well calibrated. I don't want to say calibrated. I think there's something maybe like some kind of calculation that just isn't as well. But the 0.4 nozzle has just been developed so much that, you know, they just have that nice, you know, that nice look to it. And this is a 0.4 from the XL. So, I mean, obviously 0.4 is going to give you better resolution, but you can get very beautiful prints with a 0.8 nozzle, which I don't think that people realize, you know. I think a lot of people think, you know, it's kind of absurd to like run everything in a 0.8 nozzle. And I mean, some of these are a little bit clunky because, you know, and you got to keep in mind, like, over time, you fine tune that Z level. And, you know, I'm kind of trying to do this fast because I'm going on vacation. So, but, you know, 0.8 nozzle. And also, this file should have been made bigger because this file was made to be in a smaller print. There isn't very much clearance with a 0.4 nozzle. this would, of course, is going to print better because it's a smaller print. I could have made this easily much bigger. So it does print much, 0.8 does print much faster than the 0.4. So instead of it being 4 hours, this was only an hour and 20 minutes. But I still do think that that's kind of a nice, if it would focus, a nice gorgeous print. Now, how I get this, okay? First layer height, and then so you do the Z calibration, okay? You get it as close as you're gonna get. Then you set your first layer height to where you want to be, okay? So like in the slicer, okay? So let's say you want detail, so you'll set for detail, and then you'll go into there and then you'll set them so that they're the same value, okay? So then when you start your first print, and within the first 3 layers, you can do the first layer adjustment, and that comes up right when the print starts. You can only do it for the first 3 layers, so you get really good and really quick at that, And after a while, so I actually have where is it? I have like a little cheat sheet somewhere for myself, like when I do want to change from like one layer height to another, that like I do write them down, like at 0.3 layer height, this was my Z. At 0.4, this was my Z. And then you can get it to that point, and then you look at it. And once you know what you're looking for with the Z layer height, it's super fast. It's not that big of a deal. It's not as hard, and it's pretty simple. But you do get gorgeous prints, and you do get them much faster with the 0.8 nozzle. So I mean, it's not as fast as the XL, because quite interestingly enough, the XL does print the 0.4 faster because of the volumetric flow, which is kind of interesting because so with the Revo with the high flow can print fast, but the nozzles for the XL are not high flow nozzles, all right? So what makes the high flow nozzle different is like if I were to get a clog in a high flow nozzle, if I were to take a needle, okay, when I take the needle, it's not just a straight up. I have to like take it and twist it, and then it kind of like will curve in, because what it does is it splits the filament so that it can heat up over more area, because it's harder to heat the area when the filament is, because the filament, it can't reach as much surface area, so it increases the surface area that way by splitting it. So and I mean, when you look at the Revo here, and I'll show you the difference between the Revo nozzles, and I mean, they're both made by E3D, okay? So these are, so this is a 0.4. So this right here is a 0.4, and I mean, there are differences, of course, but they look somewhat here. Let me find one without the sock on it, okay? I mean, eventually, hopefully, Prusa will be able to, make high flow nozzles, sorry. Prusa will hopefully be able, well, I mean, E3D could make these, hopefully, into high flow nozzles. Because when you think about it, well, it would be a little bit interesting now that I think about it, because when you look at it, you will notice that the diameter on here is definitely much thicker. So it would be interesting to see how they would do that for this. But, hopefully they could have a high flow nozzle for the XL, because my hope is with the XL to be able to print with a high flow 0.8 nozzle on most of the print, and then do a 0.25 for things like lettering and text, or, if even possible, maybe do like one layer, like for the perimeter, for just the outside, okay, do like the 0.8, and then in between from one layer to the next, like especially if it's like staggered, put like I'm not sure if I'm explaining this right. When you have the layer, haha, like you have a duck, okay? When you have one layer, one layer, one layer, if they could have like a 0.25 nozzle come in and fill that little gap in between here and here, okay? So if they could have it on the outside lay at 0.2, and they could really like make a really good looking print. That's my opinion. That's what I would like to try out, and it would be kind of nice to have the bulk of any print in like a 0.8, because I really have just come to like the sturdy, like I said, I have an evil cat who likes to break my prints, and I also have a lot of other factors. Like I do have a special needs sister who isn't always the most how to put it. She's a little um she doesn't have the kind of understanding of, my sister spent over 10 hours printing this. I should be careful with it. It's like, oh, you know, I don't like it. Bye-bye. So, you know, it's kind of nice to have something like a 0.8 nozzle that prints. But the nice thing is with the XL, it does print much faster with the 0.4. So at least that is a benefit that, at first I was kind of upset about not coming with the 0.6 nozzles and like not, being able to do the multi and having the bulk in the 0.8. But at least, it does print so much faster with the 0.4 because, it's able to heat up the filament going through the 0.4 much faster. Now, what is kind of exciting is now that I think about it, I think I'm going to, I'm not that big on the 0.4 nozzles. I think I'm going to go down to the 0.25. Since it can print that fast, and it seems like when I looked up a print, it only adds 1 hour longer. But if I get much more detailed, prettier looking prints, I'll go with the 0.25 nozzle. So, I kind of feel like there's so much potential with the different nozzle sizes, and we can do so much. We just have to fine tune a lot of them. For the 0.8, and that's a seam right there. Oh, come on. You can do it, little camera. You can do it. Come on. So that's the seam, okay? But the rest of it is not bad for a 0.8 nozzle, okay? I still think it's a pretty print. I'm biased. So, all right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get expansion joints. And so I'm upgrading this one to the MK4. Okay, and I'm putting expansion joints on this one and another spacer. So maybe this won't be the last one. Maybe in like a couple months, maybe in a month or so, I will talk about the issues I've had with using expansion joints over regular spacers, if there are any. I don't think there will be, but if there are any. And, we'll see what happens. So happy printing, everyone.